Hello lovely people and welcome back to the Liminal Witch. Over the past month or so I have collected a load of questions from you guys which I have put onto my iPad and I'm going to be answering today. If you found your way to this video and you haven't asked a question yet, don't worry, I want to make this sort of like a monthly thing or an every couple of months thing. You will have another chance to ask questions. Let's dive into the Liminal Witch's very first Q&A video. So the first question that I have is, what does liminal witchcraft mean to you and why were you drawn to it? This seems like a fitting question to answer first because I am the liminal witch. It means practicing your craft, doing rituals, magic, spell work, and harnessing the power of liminal or thin places. These vortexes and containers of energy have so much power that people often don't even think to use in their craft. You will find that lots of witches do use liminal spaces without even really knowing that they're using them or without putting too much thought into it. Liminal witchcraft is putting those liminal spaces at the front and center of your craft. So the reason that I was drawn to it in the first place was because I'm really into like the paranormal and high strangeness and the idea of sacred sites and liminal thin places. And then I started thinking, hey, why can't I just use these liminal spaces to do my craft, because I already do that anyway. And so I just decided to start saying that what I do is liminal witchcraft because it feels the most right to me. It feels like something that I do that is just what I should be doing. And you know, there's loads of different ways to go into liminal spaces. It's not just physical. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get into that in the workshop that I'm doing soon. The next one's a little bit of a long question, but let's see what we can do with it. Has your practice evolved from when you first started? What I mean is, when you started your practice, did it change you and did you have any idea what you were getting into? Has it changed and has it changed you more importantly? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes, it has changed, it has evolved, and it has changed me as a person. When I first started practicing witchcraft, I was a mess. I was super depressed all the time. I had a very negative outlook on life. I was very angry all the time. And I just don't feel those same emotions and feelings and thoughts now. I still get depressed. I still have negative thoughts, but they don't control me in the same way that they did when I first started practicing. Did I have any idea what I was getting into? I mean, I've always been drawn to like weird stuff. I've always been drawn to like fringe topics, fringe activities, just the fringe. I've always been drawn to that. So I knew that it was going to get weird, but I didn't know how much it was going to change me as a person. I didn't know that it was going to help me get out of my depression funk that I was in for like a very, very long time. I was in this funk for like years. It was like halfway through my practice that it started really changing me. And I think part of that had to do with growing up a bit as well, but I feel like if I hadn't have gotten into witchcraft, then I would still be in that dark cloud. I wouldn't have coping mechanisms in place for it. The next question is, how do I incorporate witchcraft in my daily life without being super obvious? This is something we all struggle with. Even when you're really open about your craft, there are times when you just don't want everyone else to know that you're practicing. So regardless of if you're a closeted witch or you just want to be a bit more subtle, there are a few ways that you can incorporate witchcraft into your daily life without being too obvious. One of my favorite ones that I always suggest around the Sabbath is use color magic. So for example, the way that you dress. If you're looking to manifest wealth, for example, wear green. If you're looking to manifest a partner, love from other people, wear red. If you're trying to get some self-love and, you know, like admiration for yourself, wear pink. And you don't have to be super obvious in what you're wearing either. It could just be your socks. It could just be a hair bobble. It could be a bracelet. Another way of incorporating witchcraft into your daily life without being obvious would be meditation. And I'm not saying just wherever you are, like in the middle of work, in the middle of school, you just sit there and you start closing your eyes in the lotus position and you start meditating. You can do silent little meditations in your head that only last a couple of seconds. Meditation is all about existing in the present moment. It's about being present. It's about not worrying about the thoughts that are coming into your mind. You can just take a couple of seconds where you just close your eyes and no one will notice because it's so quick. I like to do this to sort of recenter myself and recalibrate if I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed by something. Another great way to incorporate it into your life, again, it comes down to wearing things. So like I always wear this necklace, my Hecate necklace, and that's just to promote my liminality and my liminal practice without being too obvious, because not everyone knows what this means. I've had people ask me if this is from Westworld or if it's just a maze. They have no idea what it actually means. Having little trinkets and sigils and amulets just on your persons doesn't really give away that you're practicing witchcraft. So the next question is, why when you reach spiritual awakening or enlightenment do people around you become hostile or critical, or even treat you like an idiot? Even others who proclaim to be spiritually enlightened. Yo, this is a great question because it's true. I have noticed that when you're more open about your spirituality and you're more open about the things that you believe, people do start to become super critical and super hostile of you. Why? I think it's because you're challenging, the norm. I think it's because you're challenging their strict beliefs. I mean, yes, witchcraft and spirituality is way more accepted now than it was even just 10 years ago, but people are still under the assumption that it's made up or it means you're in league with the devil. The word witch and spirituality has a weird negative connotation to it, to, normal society. I think people get hostile because, you're going to be a bit more open about what you're talking about. You're willing to talk about feelings. You're willing to talk about your experiences. You're willing to talk about the lessons that you're learning. You're willing to openly talk about shadow work. And lots of people just are not ready for that, I don't think. Unless you're open to a spiritual awakening is not going to be fun. Being more critical of yourself is not going to be a good time. You have to be ready and in your own spiritual awakening. And I think when people feel like you're talking about these things and they either don't believe you or they think you're trying to bring something to the surface for them, and they get weird about it. And as for the hostility from other spiritual practitioners, I mean, gatekeeping is absolutely abundant in all the spiritual communities. People who think they know more than you, or because they've done a qualification and you haven't, that means that they know everything. You'll get this gatekeeping in any community that you're in. People who just have more experience or have done something specific or have learned a certain way will get a bit antsy when you've learned a different way. The important thing is to try and ignore these things when they happen. It's not easy, it can be quite frustrating and alienating. I mean, it's already alienating being into witchcraft, to normal people. But when you're getting that alienation within the community, it can be super alienating. But if you approach it with a positive viewpoint and you just think, they've got their own blockage, the way that they're gatekeeping me and they're being critical to me, it's not a me problem, it's a them problem. I'm mirroring something in them that they don't like, and that's their issue. You can deal with it a lot better. Are there any cryptids in your area besides Bigfoot? I hope so. So, in the area that I'm from, there is talks of Bigfoot living in the mountains. And when I say where I'm from, I mean like literally like just over the road, technically, from where I am, there's been Bigfoot sightings, like paw prints, or footprints, sorry. As for other cryptids, I mean, some people think aliens are cryptids while others don't. I generally don't like to lump them in as cryptids, but I will talk about them within the cryptid community. But there's been lots of UFO and ultra-terrestrial sightings in this area too, so I would say that counts within the same vein. Not a cryptid, but there's this huge thing that there are big cats that live in the mountains too, and people have apparently seen them. Like they're supposed to just exist somewhere in the valleys and the mountains, and occasionally people see them. It's got super cryptid energy, that has. They're not cryptids, but I fully believe that the Tylwyth Teg, fairies, fair folk in English, they exist, especially around here in this area. The Coblynau, which are the mining fairies, the cave fairies, I am a big believer that they do exist. I would say that Ellyllon also exist, which are like elves, especially in this area. I think they all exist, the Tylwyth Teg, but I have a really like big thing about those two types and like feeling their presence, especially the Coblynau, because this area is absolutely covered with mines and tunnels and caves. The next question is, what does your day-to-day practice look like for you? I think people think the witches, especially those who have been practicing for a bit longer, have like these crazy days all the time, but honestly, a lot of my days I don't do much practicing. I'll try and get a little bit of meditation in as much as I can. I will do rituals on either very specific days or days where I feel called to. But most of my practice at the moment is helping others and teaching others and just pointing others in the right direction. Like a couple of months, it'll probably change and I might be more focused on like the trees and being out in nature as it gets warmer. I might have another phase where I'm really focused on elemental magic. I might have another phase where I'm doing a lot of research. Really depends and it differs. I don't have a strict routine. I've always been a bit bad with routines, to be honest. It's always felt very conforming. I'm not a big fan of conformity. Never have been. That's why I don't have a strict routine or structure to my practice. I just practice and do things when they feel right. I don't really have like a typical day-to-day for my practice. It differs all the time. So if you have any specific questions about how it differs, what sort of things I do like that, I would be happy to answer that. Okay, the next question is about altars. So I know roughly what they are, but I don't quite understand it. As someone who doesn't believe in deities, etc., is it still worth having one? I currently have a small space to display some of my favourite items, but I don't know if that is considered an altar or if that's disrespectful. I've been told that witchcraft can be up to my own interpretation, but is that true? Can an altar be up to my interpretation? It's hard to know what's okay and what's not. The answer to pretty much all of that is yes, you can have an altar even if you don't believe in deities. An altar is basically an area or a space where you keep things of importance for your craft. And altars are different for everyone. I used to have 2 altars, I only have 1 at the moment, but I never keep space for a deity on these altars. It's for all my most important magical tools. It doesn't have to be about deities. It's not disrespectful to have an altar if you're not practicing or working with deities. Your altar can 100% be up to your interpretation. There's no right or wrong way to do an altar, and I think people do misconstrue this a lot. If someone says you're doing your altar wrong, they're just gatekeeping. There is no wrong way to do an altar. And for the final question for today, what is a hedge witch? I think this is a good place to end the video with this question because I stylize myself as a hedge witch and I'm very proud of being a hedge witch. It can be complicated to know what it is. It took me a while to understand what a hedge witch was, and the way that I describe it might be completely different to how someone else describes it. The way I would describe a hedge witch is it's sort of like a cross between green witchcraft, kitchen witchcraft, and hearth witchcraft. Hedge witches are usually solitary, and they work on the fringes. They work between worlds, so there's heavy liminality when it comes to hedge witchcraft. Some hedge witches are hardcore herbalists and they work with lots of herbs. They go foraging, spend a lot of time in nature, while other hedge witches, a bit like myself, work more with the paranormal, the weird and the wonderful, working with both the physical and the metaphysical world. I have lots of videos explaining what a hedge witch is, and the wording always comes off a little bit differently each time, but it's sort of like that. And the beauty of hedge witches is none of us follow a specific set of rules or dogma, so that's why no 2 hedge witches are ever the same. I would suggest looking at some of my older reels and older TikTok videos if you want to know a bit more. And on that lovely note, people, that was the Liminal Witch's very first Q&A. I've wanted to do one of these for a very long time, and I finally recorded it now. This was so much fun to do. It's nice to have a video up on YouTube again, and it's nice to just, talk to you guys and answer some of your questions. I do want to do these videos every month or every 2 months if I can. So if you have a question that wasn't answered in this video, please drop a comment. Leave your question there. I will collect these comments and save them for the next video. Big blessings to you all, and I will see you all in the next video.